Greetings, friends. Welcome back to the Film Alchemist podcast, the show where we look at movies we love, break them apart, to find out what gives them their magic. I'm your host, Josh Griffey, here for a brief intro tonight before our very special episode. So if you guys are here with us, we hope you enjoy the time you spend listening to our show, and we would like to ask you for a small favor. If you could be so kind, please take a second. Leave us a rating and review wherever you find the show, especially if that happens to be Apple Podcast app. That helps us out enormously, helps us find new people to bring into the Alchemist fold. So thank you in advance for that, guys. It only takes a second, a quick 5-star, and maybe a sentence about what you like about the show. You don't even have to be that honest. Just say that we blow your minds constantly, and that would be great. You can find us on all the social media you're on. We like Instagram. That's at Film Alchemist Pod. Yeah, they do ats. On Twitter, we are at Film_Alchemist. So you can find us there. Get a hold of us. We love communicating with you guys. We also have Facebook, all the other cool socials that the youngsters are doing. Also, you can see our faces as well as hear our voices on our YouTube channel, Nerd Alchemist. We also have an email. filmalchemistpod@gmail.com, where you can reach out to the show, give us your ideas for movies you'd like to see covered, new, old, themes, guest hosts, double features, anything like that. As you guys know, every December we stuff your stockings, where we do all listener selection month. So now's a great time to get in early, get in strong, because we only have time for X amount, so we pick our favorites of the ones that you listeners suggest. So filmalchemistpod@gmail.com is a great way to get a hold of us for that. All right, guys, without further ado, Halloween 3 Season of the Witch. This was a horribly maligned Halloween movie, sequel, horror movie in general, that is now, I think, with proper time and distance, really found a cult audience. A lot of people now further out have had time to separate this movie from the story of Michael Myers and the Strode oeuvre, and just kind of appreciate it for this weird little gem that it is. So we're joined tonight by our returning friend, Rob Parr, he of Deer Hunter fame, The Deer Hunter. That's the band he plays in. Very awesome band, even more awesome guy. If you haven't already, he was on our show last week, doing House of a Thousand Corpses. We love Rob. You will notice that halfway through the show, Rob got taken out by the druids. We hope he's okay and fighting his way out of the mask factory. But yeah, power went out, Stonehenge lighting, masks were melting all around him. But Rob's a very crafty man. I bet he got out okay. And I bet you can still see him and the Deer Hunter doing their thing. So find them online. Please enjoy the show tonight. And guys, if you're still on the fence, hopefully we'll help push you over to Team Season of the Witch. Enjoy.
This movie is awesome, by the way. I do not understand why people hate this movie.
I do.
It's shockingly good.
I just have to admit, I threw some stones. No. You know what's weird about this movie? I remember hating it when I was young.
Is it because it's Michael Myers less?
I enjoy it. I find it entertaining. With that being said, when I watched it the other day, I was like, this is so bad. I can't even believe I'm watching this. I've seen this movie, I don't know how many times, probably 10, 15 times, just because I'm a rewatcher and Halloween's my favorite franchise. I couldn't tell you the name of a single fucking character in this movie. I still have no idea. Don't know the actors' names. Don't know the characters'
I just know O'Connell, or maybe that's not even his name. I don't remember.
That's not his name.
It's like Mr. O'Connell built the town. Whatever that fucking innkeeper says like 5 times.
It's
and then you got the Men in Gray, and yeah, that's about all.
Yeah, that's it. I just know the Men in Gray. I didn't even know that's what you're supposed to call them.
See, that's what's so weird is because I remember being a kid and I was one of those. You take hard stands when you're younger, right? where you're like defining your personality by what you like and especially by what you hate. And so I was like, sweet, I hate Star Trek. That's a point in my column. Cool, I'll hate Season of the Witch. But as I got older, there is a real weirdness about this film that just kind of leaps off the screen at this age that I absolutely love this fucking movie. Like, unabashedly, I'm not trying, because one of the things that's happened to this movie, too, is it's gotten that last drive-in bump from Joe Bob, more particularly Darcy the Mail Girl, where now everyone's like, it's the cool thing to jump on the Season of the Witch bandwagon, which I'm totally down for it. Because this is the thing, I do wonder, this movie has a really cool premise, exceptionally good gore effects, right? What happened if this movie just came out as like a made-for-TV movie in like the same year? We'd be talking about it like, look at what they achieved. I think that's my alternate druid universe for what could have happened with this movie.
I'm with you that I love the weirdness of it. It definitely, like I said, I enjoy it. I think it's a really entertaining movie. If I'm being totally objective, though, like just absolutely objective, it's no good. And I would argue though too. I think part of the reason it's become so weirdly endearing is because it is a non-canonical, as far as Michael Myers is concerned, Halloween movie. I would argue if it was another Michael Myers film and it was as equally objectively poor, it would be just so much more shit on.
Yes.
Maybe, I think
in my opinion.
There's a thing that's happened too, right? There's this great book that came out, Grady Hendrix, I think, wrote it. It was called Paperbacks from Hell, right? And he essentially went through and he talked about how he had this, collection hobby of he'd go out and find these weird paperback books, right? There was this whole surge after, The Exorcist and The Omen hit, right? There were like these big 3 books that hit, Rosemary's Baby and shit. And then they started doing all of these crazy horror paperbacks, right? And they have the weirdest fucking covers. And the example he talks about is there was this one where a Nazi scientist escaped and ran a castle that became like a bed and breakfast. And he was inventing like a race of like Nazi gnomes, like little people gnomes, like David the Gnome from Nickelodeon, but a Nazi. And the cover for it's amazing. And you're like, holy shit. You're like, I got it. So every book in there, I'm always scouring to find these things now. Because it's just one of those, you're like, Nazi gnomes. Okay, like, that's weird enough. I'll fucks with that. And that's what this movie is to me. So you're telling me there's a guy who wants to destroy the world because, like Alfred would say, right? He just wants to watch the world burn. But his method of attack is terrible jingles and basic bitch Halloween mask. And he invents, like, Robotrons. And it's fucking insane. They literally just gloss over this, right? It's one of those Lovecraft things, right? Where he's like, a monster that defies your own eyes. Trust me, it's scary. That's how Lovecraft describes every monster in his writing. Oh, boy, you would have shit if you saw that thing. That's every description, right? There's a scene when he just goes, that's it. That's the real Stonehenge. You never would imagine what it took to get that over here. And we just gloss right past that. And that's the kind of weirdness they set up as the baseline for this movie.
And that's like, in rewatching it, I was genuinely thinking, if I was giving a full, all spoilers, just brief rundown of this movie to people, it's like, what? If someone told me what this movie was about and filled in those details, it's like, yeah, a guy, he founded a mask factory. Oh, also he used to make practical joke things for some reason. He founded it in a town, and everyone in the town is Irish except for him, even though it's an Irish company. That's a thing they make it a point to tell you. And then he's able to harness a power that somehow is in Stonehenge because they brought Stonehenge in. That's also not Irish, but it's fine. And then it makes lasers happen either
so cool.
Inside of a mask or directly to a woman's face, and it turns heads into bugs and snakes.
Yes.
I would be
That's the long-winded one, right? What you could say is, imagine Indiana Jones, except if the Ark of the Covenant was Stonehenge and the Nazis were Celtic druids. That's like, That's what this movie is, really, right? There's just, it's
Do
not.
they even mention the druids? Do they do any of that? I thought it was just like, we've got Stonehenge, it's got powers.
Well, they talk about the ritual of Samhain, or he says it really weird in this
Oh.
movie, right? Like, Saim, right? Instead of Samhain or whatever it is. But yeah, he talks about there used to be rituals. The hills ran red with blood. Also, this will be a great laugh for me. So it is like this really weird kind of setup. But yeah, it's because the Stonehenge was linked to druid magic, they think. I don't know. So I could be filling some of those gaps in. Because whereas Indiana Jones went on this world, hopping adventure, we spend all this time in a shitty motel, right? Just banging a mourner. But but this is what I mean, though. I appreciate the fact that this film, because this is the thing. If I had to pinpoint something that is maybe part of some of the rough edges, there's a scene early on when the escapee, whoever this guy is who's fleeing for his life, right?
Yeah.
He's in the bed. He's finally resting. The man in gray is always in the background, right? So they do Michael Myers in a suit in this movie a lot early, right? He steps into the fore of the frame, suit, whatever. There's a really weird shot in there when we're like, oh, he's coming to get the guy. And the camera's just holding on his shoes to his dick. And it's almost as if they cut the audio of action. And then he just starts walking. I was like, just start on the step. Start with some action. Don't freeze on the dick shot. You can literally tell he just started the cut half a second too late. And I was like, so there's some rough direction going on at times. But again, I think what I like about it, I like some of the bigger themes, right? I like this weird mix of the weaponizing of technology and magic, right? Because like you said earlier, when that Karen's reading her Walmart Fabio book in bed or whatever's happening, right? She's somehow oh, I better hack these circuits, right? With her hairpin. I don't know what the fuck she was even trying to accomplish.
Right? What was the end goal there?
Yeah, I was like, what are you thinking? But a fucking laser just hits her face. And, well, that's also funny because we cut away to the fucking. It's like, what was that? Who cares? I know we're here for a mystery, but right now I'm all about WAP. And so we cut back to Karen, right? And this is one of those scenes I'm like, this is why this movie's awesome. Because now her face is fucking melted, and it's so cool. And a cricket just comes out of her mouth. And you're like, they have cricket lasers. And again, just the fact that I said they have cricket lasers, that's enough for me. I'm a simple man. I'm a simple man.
I think that's what's so great about this movie. It does feels like a 10-year-old wrote a run-on sentence of what he thinks a great science fiction horror movie would be, and that's what Season of the Witch is. And that's why I enjoy it so much. It's insane on multiple levels. And I think that's kind of the charm. And again, I kind of agree. I think if this had not, I feel like it only suffers, it would be one of these great cult classics. I mean, it is, but it would be one of those movies that would never have had the detractors it had it not come with Halloween as the main title. This could absolutely be this is absolutely one of those drive-in movies, 1,000%.
Well, also, they totally hamstring themselves by constantly showing us Halloween on TV. And they're the undying classic. And it's bitch, quiet. We're trying to do something else here.
A little heavy-handed there.
Yeah, right?
A little much. But it is just kind of bananas, really entertaining the entire way through, because you're just what ride am I on right now?
Yeah.
I love that.
But that's what I mean, though. It's just this weird mix of things that are, because it's not that it doesn't make sense, right? But it's one of those things that every time someone makes a decision, you're like, in this world, yeah, that makes the scene that's great is when he's just so he's just at the bar, right, by himself getting hammered as doctors do.
Right.
And this girl's like, hey, I was told I could find you here, right? Okay. And he just, one of the very next things we see, right? He's doing some low-key detective stuff inside of a Halloween store. My pa was here and his ledger, blah, blah. The very next shot is him with a six-pack on top of a payphone. He's like, It's a fucking doctor convention. I don't remember the hotel. I can't hang out with my kids. I can't get out of it. Bye. And then he runs gleefully to the car with this California girl.
So that whole scene is so funny to me because one, the thing where he says, or I'm sorry, she says, yeah, my father kept excellent records.
Right.
And then she just reads what's basically his calendar. It wasn't, there were no records. It was just like, I had to do this on this day. I had to do this on this. And then everything else was her going, yeah, I checked. But him gleefully running to the car with the six-pack and then the brief scene we see of them in the car together was meant to be all of the tension developed that we needed for them to start boning. Which is, like, that came out of nowhere. It was just like, what the fuck are you even talking about? And then I was watching this with my friend, and she was like, the girl comes out in lingerie, and my friend was like, she packed that?
Well, they even said, right, the guy's like, you guys packed really light. She only had that little tiny thing.
Right.
But this gets to a theory I have in the movie. The lingerie is actually a key piece of evidence to me.
I truly love the forethought, though, of like, hey, I might get down. You never know. And like,
because that was the second fuck, right? That was the second time, the reload. When he's like, I got to go share a bottle with a creepy old man who promised me he wasn't diseased.
Yeah, that was weird, too.
Yeah, right? He's like, I ain't got no diseases. And the doctor is like, seems sound. This seems legit. Please ramble, old man. But then he gets back and she has the nightie, right? Because the first banging scene is so strange because it reminded me of The Fog, right? He picks up Jamie Lee Curtis. They go to his house. The very next thing we see after they've done like 2 jokes where he's like, yeah, I am crazy. I do kill people, is them fucking. Like they're just laying there having cigarettes after they bang, right? And you're like, Jesus Christ, this guy's got like some alpha butch mustache power. This movie does that too, except it's way weirder because they get to the motel and she's like, or he says something along the lines of, I checked the ledger. Your father was here. And she's like, oh my God, we got to go. Like, this is a hot lead. He's like, or we lay low and fuck.
No, it's weirder than that. So and this is literally the only line in the movie. This is the only thing in the movie that implies any version of sexual tension, because this is all 2 best friends on a caper up until this point.
That's right.
Where he's like, maybe I just get my own room, and she's like, yeah, that might look a little weird because they're pretending to be a married couple. Right. And he goes, well, I could sleep in the car. It'll be better than the floor anyway. And she goes, where do you want to sleep, doctor? Whatever. And then he kind of goes,
what a dumb question. Rare.
That was it, though. That was the entirety of the tension and the build-up.
Right.
To what became, I'm sure, a very memorable evening.
Yeah, well, there's like a brief second where you're like, did he just want road beers because he's an alcoholic, or like, did he know the whole time? You know what I mean? Was he fueling up the engine? Yeah, as it were. But it's like,
did he know what was going to happen?
Yeah, because I'm like, dude, you already abandoned your kids. Like, you're here, like, solving a mystery. And he just immediately seems so wildly uninterested. Because this is a guy who just saw a man come into his hospital gripping a Halloween mask, and then saw another guy light himself on fucking fire and explode his car. And he's like, I just want to beat some cheeks. Like, this mystery stuff is just not my favorite. And you're like, in this like world, maybe.
That's the other really funny part of the movie that you don't. I mean, you notice it because it's so blatant, but you don't really put it all together. But he's a piece of shit. Like, he's an absolute terrible piece of shit.
He's a horrendous human being.
He's a garbage person.
He's an alcoholic. He's lying to his ex-wife about what he's doing. He's intentionally avoiding his kids. He's, for some reason, putting detective work on someone that works at the morgue that he, I guess, used to sleep with.
That he also used to do the old 6-pack delight on, for sure.
But he's like calling her for weird shit. He's like, look into this, and she's like, I don't know. I have to. That's not my job. Like,
this could be tampering with a major crime. Remember that thing I did with my mustache? All right, I'll break the law for you. You're right. But yeah, I think they have to do that though, right? They have to make him the worst guy because at the end of the movie we're like, oh fuck, his kid's head got melted. That sucks. So like he has to be so despicable that at the end we don't mind his kids getting murdered. Just 2 kids who wanted a dad. You're like, maybe they were a bit ungrateful when he bought them those like liquor store masks. You know, he was just like buying one of those like pints. He's like, yeah, I'll keep this low key. And then he's like, well, better get something for those asshole kids I want to abandon. But yeah, they really do a lot to make him the absolute worst person. Because that's the other thing that doesn't jump out at you when you're young. You're just like, he's a doctor and he got laid. Like, he's clearly a hero. Right? Like, that's how I used to think of him. I was like, he defeated a robot in hand-to-hand combat. Like, he is a good man. And then you're our age and you're like, oh, boy. Oh, boy.
It didn't even jump out at me the other day. I care so little about these characters that it's just like, I don't care what he's doing. He just makes strange decisions, and I'm like, fuck this guy, whatever he wants to do. But that's how I feel about everyone in the movie. Which is maybe why I enjoy it, is there's no emotional investment whatsoever.
Well, it does make you say, maybe the druids should have come for us earlier. Like, if this is the best we have to offer as a society. They also have one of my favorite things, too. Like, if we're just talking about weird background actors, I love the firefighter when he's calling his wife and he's like, I just saw something. I can't come. She's like, yeah, I know the trick. You're doing the 6-pack thing again. And he's like, no, for real. And there's a firefighter who has his arm on the fridge and literally just keeps going and shaking his head to the side and raising his hand up. Like, preach, brother. And I was like, why is that guy in the shot? That gets back to like the directing thing. but it's, see, that's the thing. Cause the characters could have been stronger per se, but by the time you get to like the less evil Willy Wonka factory, it's fine, because then we're doing kind of the game, right? You're doing they're all these fucking men in gray, and they're fighting all these other, like, kind of humanoid things with mustaches, and, you know, it's cool. It's fun. It's wild. What did you make of the factory, Alex?
Oh, man, the factory is, like, one of my all-time favorite set pieces.
So
like,
good.
There's something about that that's so charmingly horrifying.
Yeah.
Like, because honestly, I actually think it makes Willy Wonka's factory look actually like a chocolate factory rather than Murder Town, because I've always assumed like no one leaves the chocolate factory in Charlie. At least here you can see the exits clearly marked. Like,
I mean, they killed one child. Willy Wonka killed what, 4 or 5?
Probably more. Like,
he's
when
like,
you really
congrats,
think about it.
poor
How
Charlie,
many times,
you survived the Hunger Games.
How many times do you think Willy Wonka actually did the golden ticket contest that we weren't privy to? Like, that had to have been like version 7, right?
He's essentially like a fucking alleyway flasher. He just opens his coat and he's like, here's a golden ticket, baby.
Again, this seems so much less dangerous than Willy Wonka's chocolate factory, again, mainly because you can see the exits. There's daylight coming in. I'm not worried about anyone leaving this building. Fuck. This is crazy. The druids at Stonehenge hurt us, actually. Rob, I don't know if you can tell, Griff, but like from your end, can you, like, Rob's frozen. So
yeah. Well, no, because I actually thought that Rob was just so engrossed in my comedic presentation that he was just listening and hanging on my every word. Little did I, I've suspected for a long time that greater powers at work were on to us because we were on to them and that they would come for us. I'm sad that they got Rob first. So yeah, Rob's power was taken out by a Stonehengian accident. Yeah. We did message him, guys, because we wanted to bring Rob back. He is unable to go tonight and has no more time as he is a touring musician, man. He's got a busy life. So sadly, we will have to forge on through the Silver Shamrock factory alone.
Wait. I just got another text from him. He said they found a woman with her eyeballs lasered out.
Fuck.
Who lives, I think, it's true. This is what happens.
32 days till Halloween. 32 days till Halloween. Fuck, man. That sucks that we lost Rob. But, the show must go on. As Indeed. We're doing a show every day this month, we don't have a lot of time here. But fuck, man. Druids! I'm just saying this. You don't have a big enough mask for my fucking head. If you come for the Griff household, you better bring more than those wimpy-ass men in gray.
This is fucking nuts, man. Yeah, so I guess I'll just pick up where I left off in saying that factory looked way less threatening. It looked far more threatening than the Wonka factory. Was that what I was trying to say? I'm so thrown off.
I think you were saying that, and I was refuting with, well, Willy Wonka killed more children and probably used them as ingredients in his candy.
Oh, for sure.
Now,
everlasting gobstoppers are probably just made of children's kidneys.
I never thought to suck on them before. Great. No, yeah, I would say Silver Shamrock, though, by the end of this movie, probably brought the body count up to a Wonka-like respectable level. Let's talk about the Silver Shamrock setup, though, because I love the way they deploy Silver Shamrock in this movie.
Same.
Again, I don't think the men in gray are necessarily... I think they could have cast a little better, right? But the fact that they all kind of look like extras in, like, Wall Street... Like, you know, the guys at Wall Street that aren't, like, getting laid, but they're, like, you know, in accounting.
No. They all look like floor traders. That's what they look like. Like, none of them look like they actually are doing cool, like, Wolf of Wall Street stuff. They all look like those guys on the floor, like, in Ferris Bueller, who are, like, that kind of thing with their fingers. Yeah.
Don't these people know I was varsity? No, like those kind of guys, yeah. But those guys are awesome. They're very nefarious. Again, they're kind of playing this Michael Myers-like menace. But they're really very cool in this film, right? One, just awesome kills, right? So we see a head rip. The scene when they poke our runaway's eyes out and then lift the bridge of his nose.
Yep.
Haunting. Absolutely
Horrifying.
haunting, right? And the thing that is really cool about them, right? Because I was thinking about this in the context of the Halloween series. They do this all very straight-faced, no emotion.
No.
And it's very Michael Myers-like, but when you see a human face doing it, it's actually really terrifying, right? Like, even the guy who gets smashed by the car and just goes, oh, he looks like the thing out in front of a used car lot, right? Oh, and then he falls down.
That was the weird thing, too, is, his reaction was literally like, oh.
Right.
Like, it was such this, like, muted sort of...
That made it extra creepy, man. I had a friend who got hit by a car, and it's always been one of my, like, wild, horrible nightmare fears now. And watching that guy not react, it really lets you know early on, oh, fuck, what is this? And so that's a really cool thing, because another thing this movie plays on, right, and what they use Shamrock, I think it's really clever, right? I don't want to say it's tongue-in-cheek, per se, because it's very much on Front Street. Right. But, so you take Michael Myers out, right? But this theme of mask being the element with which you build this movie off of is a really fascinating choice. I dug that idea of Halloween as this anthology now, but using the mask as the bridge, right? This what is human and what isn't.
I mean, yeah, I like that kind of carrying over of iconography. Like, that Michael Myers mask is so famous, but so is, like, every other version of a mask. Halloween masks are iconic. I like that a lot. And I think that's the thing that I enjoyed the most about this movie, and why I say, like, it can totally exist on its own. There's absolutely nothing about it that isn't without the ability to be its own movie. And I wish that it literally just been called Season of the Witch, or like like Masks of Stonehenge, or some other stupid fucking title. It's I mean, like you said, it's perfect last drive-in fodder. It's perfect. Just like
this would have been an absolute like runaway cult hit now. And that's the thing. I would say it is now. Like, now we've gotten to the point where it's so long ago and people aren't mad, right? Oh, because everyone forgets they did a Friday the 13th movie without Jason, right?
Yes.
Technically, right? We still had a big bruiser killer, but that wasn't Jason Voorhees, right?
No.
Even the first one, that wasn't Jason Voorhees, right? It plays the same.
Technically not Jason Voorhees.
Yeah, it plays the same. And I would argue this plays the same, right? It's these shapeless menaces coming to take something that we find solace in. It's kind of one of the fun things when O'Doyle, or whatever his name is, right? O'Douls. I forget his Irish name. I can't remember.
Neither of which are his names.
Mr. O'Connellingy.
I think it's like O'Callahan or some bullshit.
Oh yeah, Callahan Auto. Yeah, so when Callahan Auto comes in, he's like, you never thought about Halloween.
It's not anything. It's Cochran.
Cochran, that makes sense.
Cochran, yeah.
Right, so he comes in and he's just doing his Republican thing. You never thought about sending your children out in mass to beg for candy? A handout, huh? You're coming, right? When he starts doing his Republican thing, it's funny, though, because this series, again, is taking on something that's right in our own homes, right? We all experience Halloween. We all send our kids out into the night surrounded by people in fucking masks and just assume everything will be okay. People are dressed as murderers, ghouls, carrying chainsaws and whatever, and we're just like, there's no chance that someone's actually going to kill someone, right? And so that idea of this is something that you have lost sight of and let into your own home, right? That's a cool theme, man. I
think that's what's interesting in general about Halloween, and I think that's why, like, this is the only sequel that John Carpenter and Deborah Hill came back for.
Yeah.
And I think that's the really interesting thing about Halloween, and that's why they wanted to do this way, is because there's so much about, like, Halloween in general, as it is now, is dangerous. Like, you feel that danger and you feel that tension as you move on with your day, as you move on through the day. Like, I remember as a kid, even then, there were still those stories about, like, razor blades in people's candy and shit.
Well, they showed that in Halloween too, right?
Yeah.
It is a myth.
It's a myth, but nevertheless, like, it's still. I remember.
Well, no, because if you look up the story about where that came from, it's actually scarier, right? It was a guy who killed his own family.
Yeah, it's horrifying.
Oh my god, it's horrifying.
I mean, I remember when we were living in Washington. We lived in Washington D.C. for a little bit when I was a kid, and I remember one Halloween specifically. My parents checked through all my candy to make sure nobody had like they combed through it and with gloves to make sure no one had actually done anything to it, because there's like rumors going around in my neighborhood that people had fucked with kids' candy. Like, that's the kind of stuff that makes Halloween a little dangerous. And that's what I've always really liked about this movie, is that it's taking Halloween as the fear. Halloween is the iconography we're diving into, not, Michael Myers is here. Like, I like that's what this movie focuses on, and this movie preys on the fear of Halloween, Halloween that seems like it should be in control, being completely out of control.
Yeah, and that's the strange thing, is it is just this slowly invading force, right? We see it in their house. This mom bought mask. The kids bobbing up and down in front of the commercial on the TV is one of the more horrific things in the film, because you're like, fuck, I have kids, and all of us parents do the thing sometimes that I think we hate ourselves for, which is like, goddamn, just watch anything. Just shut up. Please don't be horrible. Watch any show you want. And you see the power of TV to just make your kids little zombie drones, right? And so it's this scary thing, but he's too busy thinking about who is mourning enough for him to hook up with in a shitty motel to really care about what's happening with his own children. And by the time he does, it's way too late, right? And so that slowly creeping thing of you have just left your house open, your family open, right? Because there's that cool moment in the factory when he somehow beats one of the men in gray in fisticuffs and rips his guts out. And it's just like goop and wires, right? And instead of two more guys come and just put a hand on him, instead of going John Wick on him, he just stops. Yeah. And I love that moment, because it's this man who probably thinks he has all the answers, was bored with his life. He's like, I got to go out and fuck a bunch and be cool. You know, I'm a cool doctor. I'm one of those guys.
Go out, grab a sixer.
Yeah, I have this
lady
mustache.
Who definitely packs lingerie.
Yeah, I share bottles with weird, crazy people. Like, I'm that guy. I'm the X Factor friend. You know that, right? And that guy, in that moment, right, when he sinks, it's one of my favorite scenes in the film, because when he sinks and the other men in gray just pull him off, right, and the O'Doyles just start talking to him like it's nothing. You just see this man who is a man of science and he thinks he's got it all figured out, just be like, oh my fucking God. Like, the mask of the entire world has been lifted. Mm-hmm. And he is so overwhelmed, because then you match it with the shot when we see the Bumblefuck family in the RV, right? They go into the testing laboratory, And they're just being normal dipshit family, right? And the kid puts his mask on and his fucking face starts melting into snakes and whatever.
Awesome.
And Tom Atkins' character is just watching, and he's so sweaty, right? And he just goes and shakes his hands at whatever God exists or now doesn't, like whatever. He's shaking his hands at the whole universe because he's so lost and befuddled in this moment. And I was like, that is the cool thing of this movie, right? Is we have just unmasked everything this guy thought he knew. And it's really a fascinating place to take this movie. I really like the way they rolled this stuff out.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's the kind of science fiction that I like to watch. Like, it's the kind of science fiction where people have no idea what they're actually doing. Like, it's grappling with the power of the gods. And I like that it's under the guise of Halloween, under the guise of something that is seemingly innocent, like children's masks and that kind of thing. Like, that's the kind of stuff that I think is what makes this movie pretty exceptional, actually. And yes, there are parts of it that are fucking ridiculous. Like, again, I go back to the very beginning of the movie when the doctor literally pats that woman on the ass and he's like, seriously, I'd fuck you, but I'm married. And I'm like, really? That's going to stop you
Also,
right now?
like,
come on, bro. Like, also, you're not going to stop, so I don't know what the problem is.
Well, the best part of the opening was the randomly put upon gas station owner.
Oh my God.
He was just like, why do these fucking people keep coming to my gas station? Because I love that when he's like, the guy wakes up and he's like, oh, and he's freaking out on the bed. And that dude is just like jogging out of the hospital as fast as he fucking can. 'Cause he's like, nope, I don't know what the fuck this guy got himself into. Not my shit. I'm going back to my gas station and TV. And I was like, that's the most relatable dude.
Yeah, that guy knows what's going on in this world. That guy is already.
Tom Atkins wanders in. I was like, is this some kind of like, this is the airplane on Lost Island? This is the entry point to this fucking bonkers reality? Is this poor man's gas station?
That guy's for sure seen the mask. He knows what the deal is. He's like, fuck this. I'm getting out of here. Silver Shamrock's on it. I'm out. Like, that's the kind of guy we all should be in the movies.
Yeah.
That none of us are.
But that's what I mean, the way Shamrock operates, though, is cool. Because even that last moment, right, when he's like, take the commercials off.
Right.
And they get two of the three networks.
Great ending to this movie.
Oh, my God. It's one of the greats because you can't get the third network. And again, it's this, there's so much saturation, right? One, that all of us are so caught up in the capitalist system. If some kid gets a Shamrock mask, you can't let your kid be the only one without a Shamrock mask. You can't have those liquor store masks that Tom Atkins bought for his kids, right?
Right.
You have to get one. So the scene when they're all marching across the different parts of the country was truly horrifying. So you're like, we all have to be the parent that buys that, right? Every Thanksgiving, there's a fucking toy that people are trampling each other to death to get. That's just how this goes, right? So it's a saturation of product, and then these fucking ads that are constantly, watch. It's a giveaway. Even though everyone has these fucking things, right? So there is this saturation. So even when the two go offline, there's still a network that's not doing it. And when Tom Atkins looks down the barrel of the lens and screams, you get the sense that those kids' faces in front of him are fucking melting. Yes. And by proxy, the Spider-Man rule, right? If they have that mask on, anyone can be under it. His own fucking children are rotting in front of his eyes.
It's awesome. It's truly
a fucking hammered punch, man.
I'm going to tell you right now, that is the scariest ending of any fucking Halloween movie.
Oh, yeah.
In this franchise, that's the scariest fucking ending. And they never were able to capture anything scarier than that. I don't know why.
Michael not being there and breathing as we go from house to house is probably still my favorite. Jamie is like a low-key rendition of that, which is cool. But yeah, this one is...
But this one, like, that is true terror, man. Like, again, like, what this movie understands about what makes, I guess I would say, the first two installments of the Michael Myers story scary is the unknowing of why Michael Myers is doing what he's doing. Like, we just know that by the end of the second one, we know that him and Laurie are related. But I mean, you just know he's evil. That's all you have. Like,
but why did he start killing his sisters? Yeah,
that's all you got. Like, you just have Donald Pleasance, Donald Pleasance, doing his Loomis thing and screaming evil nonstop. But that's it. So, like, what this movie takes and borrows from the first two is the unknowing of what's behind the mask, like you were saying, but then also the real terror of the unknown evil out there. Like that's the crazy thing. And I think that's and then not only then on top of all that, you have the family aspect, which again is always going to be, in my opinion, probably the thing that is more frightening than anything about the Halloween movies is the familial issues that go on. Like we never really know what they are, and they're pretty muddy by like Rob Zombie times. Although Rob Zombie does a much better job of actually like refining that a little bit.
Yeah,
but,
he literally hits us with the Brillo pad of abusive family behavior.
Right, like he like actually wants to explore that. I like that Season of the Witch kind of reinforces that fear of loss of family.
Right.
And fear of family, no less.
Well, again,
it's cool.
Imagine what we're seeing, right? Again, at the end of Halloween 1, which is probably still my favorite, Michael is breathing as they show us living room, laundry room, places where we live, right? This evil is everywhere. At the end of this movie, as Tom Atkins screams down the barrel of the lens, we are left to imagine so much, right? We've seen children marching all over the fucking country with this mask, right? So not only are his kids dead, how many fucking dead children are filling America the morning after, right? Is this a mountain of dead children? Is this 1 million dead children?
I mean,
and that's what I mean. Imagine what the implications of this film are, right? Because we've seen a lot of horror movies where a lot of bad things happen, right? This is the movie that says, hey, imagine if 60% of all American children are dead tomorrow. Right. And imagine what that means for the parents and their families and society. And now we have to know, but they were defeated by these masks, but there's some kind of extra force that's making snakes and whatever the fuck. How many parents are dead from snake bites or varmint attacks, whatever, right? So that the long-reaching of this is a society could be over as we know it. Right, this is sure. There could be other elder gods that we have forgotten coming back to claim this land. This, of all the horror movies I've ever seen, might have some of the biggest. I mean, Cabin in the Woods kind of does it, but that's a little more meta and funny, right?
Right.
This might have some of the biggest stakes of any horror movie ever, and I think we just kind of gloss over what that next day feels like.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's like the thing that I focused on the most is I was like, that who's watching Fox right now? That's terrifying, you know? that's the real fear is.
Yeah, which network was the one that didn't turn it off? I mean,
Fox
let's be
News.
real, it's Fox. It's like, you're not impinging on our freedoms.
Well, it's like Fox, and then also what would it be like, hey, listen. That little mechanical football guy is not going to run himself during Monday Night Football, all right? So you guys have to deal with it, all right?
Yeah, man. Which network was
Sorry.
it? Yeah, if you had to guess which network said, fuck you, we're going to play the thing that might kill all the children, take a wild guess. To be fair, they all would if they could make $1. But
either way,
I'd buy that
the
for
implications
$1.
are huge. And it's also, again, that's what makes it, in my opinion, far scarier than most of the other Halloween movies I've seen. Like, infinitely more horrifying in a lot of ways.
Well, also, this one, it's like, just don't be in Haddonfield and don't be related to Michael Myers. Like I said before, just be in a hot air balloon for 24 hours and you're fucking fine. This one is, because this one's going after your children. It's just feeding on all of these problems we have as a society. It's really fucked up. One of the things I liked is that, well, one, they didn't secure the bag. They just had their fucking murder laser buttons just laying out in a box, and he just made it rain on them like little bitches. True. And he just was like, boop, 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 boop. And then he's like, make it rain. And they all started dying. And a portal to Stonehenge opened. Again, the Raiders of the Lost Ark ending. Cool. I'm cool with all that. The shot I had forgotten is that he turns into somewhat a paper mache man.
Yes.
So then we're like, was he ever a real man? Is this some kind of he was a puppet from the whole jump? That scene was one of those things I had completely forgotten about in the film that really almost wigged me out, because I have a theory for you too, and this kind of reinforces it. I wonder if his girlfriend was actually a drone the entire movie.
Could be. I'd buy that.
Because here's the weird thing,
that's
right?
Not,
so when they
again,
rip her
in this
father's
movie,
nose,
not
right?
the craziest thing
Yeah.
I would have thought.
They rip her father's nose, right? It looks almost like the blood is orange. I thought it was like fucking pumpkin juice, right? When he wipes it on the curtain, it's a little more blood-like, right? So take that out. So this guy knows a doctor, has seen all this shit, right?
Right.
The question is like, why not let the derelict father alcoholic guy just sit? But let's assume you're a go-getter and you're like, I'm really into tying up loose knots. So all of a sudden, this girl appears, right? And she just, because this is the thing, was she a drone the whole time or from when she entered the bar on? Did she get got and then at the bar when she enters? Right? Because why does she go to this guy? Why does she then take him to the father's joke shop and be like, hey, look at these immaculate records. Oh, it must be this one city, this weird, strange city. Leads him there. And then, mourning and full of grief, right? She says, we've got to go to the factory right away, maybe bringing him in already. Or he's like, and she's like, fuck. Yes, I'll seduce him with fuckery.
Right.
And then we'll
So you're
move
saying
on.
that she's like Grandpa Joe with pumpkin juice. That's just like,
yeah,
that's it.
I think she's honeypotting him, right? Because
She's honeypotting. I could buy that.
They
That
want to
makes
get
sense.
him close and see if he's going to push this thing or let it go. Because they've only got 2 or 3 days. They just need to make sure he's not out in the world on TV saying, well, there was a silver shamrock mask. He's drunk. He's a loose pistol, right? How do you seduce him? They're like, oh, well, he's dying for any excuse to not hang out with his children. So send in a lady in a 6-pack and he will throw his whole life away, right?
See, I'm with you on this. This is why we needed Rob here, because he needed to be the one to come back and be like, like we needed.
No, Rob would be with me because Rob brought up one of the key elements, right? So
That's
they
true.
they fuck, and then he's like, I got to go get more liquor to share with a wild, unwashed man. He comes back and she's in the nightie. And I was like, she did not have that with her. And if she did, that means she knew what she was coming for. Is that something you would truly bring to your murdered father's funeral?
Oh shit, you're right. Rob did bring this up.
Rob brought
Dude,
that up, and I was
this
like,
is
that's
part
the
of her.
fucking
That's
evidence.
part of her scheme. Okay,
Right.
yeah.
Or she didn't have it, and the fucking crew, right? The lab coat guys came and like repurposed her so that when he got back and he's like, hey man, I heard some crazy rumors. She's like, or titties. And he's like,
He
Short
totally got
circuit.
he totally got honeypotted.
yeah, he got honeypotted.
Yep.
Is
Okay.
my theory. Right?
I mean, this movie's got a lot more layers than I think many people give it credit for.
Yeah. That was something I wondered because at the end, she's clearly a drone that kills him, right? Or tries to kill him, and he beats her up and, gets rid of her. Right? Almost as if he's vanquishing the sin of, I never should have come to fucks you. I should have been protecting my family. Right?
Right.
Here's the scene that I think hammers this theory home. When he goes to try to call the cops, right? We're talking about fucking 2 minutes, 3 minutes. How long do you think he's in there? Let's say 10 minutes, right? Give him a real big window.
Okay, let's do 10.
He comes back. She's already gone out of the room. It doesn't appear like the whole room was tossed and destroyed or anything like that. Next thing you know, he turns around. All the men in gray are there, right? We don't see a car peeling out. We don't see her screaming. We never hear her scream, period. Right? She would probably have seen them coming into the room. They'd have to force their way in, grab her. She'd have time to scream or something. Nothing. She's just gone. The next time we see her, she's fully fine, not bruised, not beaten, laying on the table to be worked upon, right? Or she was deactivated. I think she got called home in that minute, right? That the moment he goes to call the cops, shut it down, bring her fucking in, woo, 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 right?
Right.
The one scene that is a bit of a wrench in this is when she runs at the green car in the factory.
I wouldn't say a wrench. I mean, there's plenty of people who fight against their program. I mean, how do you think we got Vision?
Ooh,
It's the
that's
whole
true.
thing,
So that's the thing. Is she one of the fucking pumpkin juice boys, or is she some other form of
I think
drone?
she's possibly, maybe she's not even, hang on, maybe she's not even a robot. Maybe she is actually one of, the Stonehengean aliens.
Well, at the end, she's a robot, right? We see like her wires and shit. The very last bit of her is robot.
Right, but maybe it was...
I like to think she was a robot the whole time, though.
Okay, let's say she's a robot the whole time, but let's say maybe her programming was a little tweaked by Stonehenge, perhaps? Mm-hmm. Maybe she's not as autonomous as the rest of them?
Oh, when she got close to the stone.
Perhaps.
But the other things near the stone were functioning. Or maybe this was one of those... She's just going to play along, right? Maybe she's a robot trying to play a part. The rest of them have no emotion. So the fact that she's showing emotion, she would be a different version. Maybe she's closer to this hybrid. Because that was one of the cool things in the elevator, right? When he's like, look, they're impressive, aren't they? It's like at the end, it's really just another mask, right? Maybe this is the next step, right? Because that becomes the other question I have at the end of the movie is, what is O'Doyle's alcohol-free beer guy going to do the morning after if his ruse works? What is he just come out as the Grand Poobah, like, I murdered your children, right? Or is he like fortifying his castle? Is maybe everyone like, comes to murder him? Or
see, and this was my question at the end too, is I'm like, this was like actually the part I didn't like about the movie at all. Is like, I got to the end of the movie, I'm like, what was the point of most of that? Like, that was the issue I came to. Like, so I get this that it's again like gets
back to the Indiana Jones, where Indiana Jones can literally not exist in Raiders of the Lost Ark. And that movie happens the exact same way. The Nazis find the Ark, take it to the island, open it, and they all fucking melt.
Right.
Indiana Jones has no narrative impact on that except for to give us things to watch until the Nazis melt their face off.
Right.
And you're saying that that's how this movie is?
A little bit?
Well, the question is
I'm still very
Jerry
unclear
O'Connell's
as to the
grandpa willing is he want to be a sacrifice at the end? Is he called home? Is that what Stonehenge is doing anyways? When he turns into the puppet man?
I don't know, maybe.
But also, you know what? This is one of those things that we do on this show a lot is we take really small moments in films and extrapolate them out into wild theories.
True.
I think one of the cool things about, again, I think this is just one of those fun, like, pulpy paperbacks where it's just anything that is just a little bit unusual and off adds more to the mystique of what this movie's doing, right?
Right. I mean, I think that this is, again, it's like I said in the beginning, I like that this movie is like a big run-on sentence. And people just keep throwing shit in.
And
like,
then there's titties, and then there's a robot, and then
there's
drunk,
robots, and then there's Stonehenge, and then there's a laser. It melts a lady's face off, and they have pumpkin juice inside them, and they're robots still, and then there's masks, and those have like, it's just like a kid constant. It's like they sat down with a little kid and just pitched, and he just pitched a bunch of different ideas. They're like, got it.
And it fucking works, though.
It does. It's a
does
really fun fucking movie.
Because I know Rob loves this movie, but at the start of the show, he just kept saying how bad it is. And again, I think there are some director issues. It's a little choppy in its pacing, things like that.
Sure.
But I've never been one of those where a movie like this that's just trying to kind of be weird and out there, I will give you a lot of leeway on things like that, right? If you hammer home the things you're supposed to, right? The gore, you hammer home the mask transformation. They invented one of the most horrific songs in movie history, that fucking Silver Shamrock commercial.
Oh my God.
They nailed these kind of big themes at the end, which you did not think watching that movie they were going to stick the landing, and they fucking stuck the landing.
Yeah, it's
I was like, I'll give you some leeway on the fucking dick and shoes 2 seconds too late shot. Like, that's fine. My thing is if you're just watching this as its own little story, it's large in scale. The characters are at least captivating to watch, if not somewhat baffling. And the idea of it and the effects of it are really fun and haunting. As I've gotten older, I appreciate what this movie was trying to do instead of being mad at what it didn't do, I guess is the way I think of Halloween 3.
I mean, that's exactly what it is. Like, I think you really have to celebrate this movie for, you put it best, for what it does rather than what it doesn't. It's exactly what I want out of a Halloween movie in general, which is I don't know what to expect going in, and even with expectations of Michael Myers stuff that we've had over the last, with the first two particularly, I still want to be surprised. I don't want to necessarily get stuck. So I appreciate the Season of the Witch for what it is.
But that's what I mean, especially as we're doing these 11 Halloweens. We've done a lot of these movies. It is cool to, instead of, oh, Michael's hunting which relative? Oh, The Mask, is it good or bad in this one? You're like, Stonehenge, Men in Gray, mask melting. You're like, it's a breath of fresh air. And not only is it weird for the Halloween series, it's just weird for a movie, period. And I always default to weird and interesting above all else in movies, especially a sequel in a weird franchise. I think it's an actual miracle that this movie exists. I get why it's not everyone's jam.
Sure.
But I just think it's a really captivating movie. Then every time I watch it, I find a weird extra element.
Fun.
Today was the girlfriend was a pod person the whole time. Like I said, Rob was watching with his lady friend and he noticed the lingerie. I didn't notice it, but boom, it adds to my theory. It's just one of those movies that always makes a more interesting choice than you think it does. That's
Agreed.
it, guys, for Halloween Season of the Witch. Tomorrow, Michael Myers returns. The return of Michael Myers, Halloween 4. As we barrel on through this October, all of our horror movie madness. Again, go back and find the ones we've done. We've already done Scream and a host of our guest shows. We have all of the Halloween series, all of Candyman, all of Evil Dead, The Shining, Dr. Sleep, and more awesome guests coming up. Please take a second and leave a rating and review. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Nerd Alchemist. You can email us, filmalchemistpod@gmail.com, and get at us on the socials, guys. Man, Rob's internet, R.I.P., dude. Sorry you got...
Special thanks to Rob Parr for coming on the show. That was easily the best way for anyone to explain Season of the Witch. In the middle of it, he got Stonehenge.
Yeah, he just texts us and he's like, I got Stonehenge magic to mount. It was eventful, Rob. Yeah, I hope your Walmart trashy novel and your Karen hotel room was worth it, my friend.